Assalamu alaikum dear students, and welcome to the 70th session of the KIPS Distance Learning Program Current Affairs Newspaper Roundup session. I'm your host Shahrukh Haider, and today we're going to see an interesting development that took place in the capital of the United States of America. Allegedly, the leader of the Western world, the leader of the free world, and the house and the birthplace of democracy. So a few days ago, Trump's supporter, a number of them, attacked the House of Representatives in the United States Capitol, the Capitol Hill that is called, and in that attack they tried to overcome all the obstacles towards entering the Congress and trying to disrupt all the ongoing sessions and trying to disrupt the process of legislation and the process of the entire democratic system of the United States of America. Now that's a very unprecedented event in the history of the United States of America, where regular people, civilians, have stood up and have actually attacked the symbols of democracy in the United States of America. Remember, the House of Representatives is the lower house of Congress in the United States of America, and that house represents the core of the democratic symbols in the United States of America. And a civilian attack on those houses, especially when those civilians were armed with guns and there were also 4 deaths reported, is a very serious infringement upon the democratic ideals of the United States of America. And that tells you the kind of president that Trump was and the kind of mindset that Trump has, to the extent that he would jeopardize the democratic ideals and create social unrest, armed social unrest in the United States of America, just so that he is not removed from power. Now, all his attempts quite naturally will prove to be fatal, as they have before, but nevertheless, the idea that there are people in the United States which are willing to go to this extreme in order to support a bigot, a racist, sexist, populist bigot who has consistently eroded United States power, diplomacy and position in the international arena, is cause for concern for the American public. Now, this points out to an emerging development in the world at large as well. And that development is directly tied to the rise of nationalism and populist rhetoric and anti-immigrant and racial and xenophobic sentiment that was on the rise ever since 2016, especially with the election of Donald Trump to the presidency of the United States and the Brexit initiation. Now, throughout the last 3-4 years, the march of authoritarianism due to the election victory of populist nationalist leaders in various countries, especially Western capitals, including the United Kingdom, the Poland, Italy, and other Hungary, and in other parts of the world as well, such as Turkey, India, Brazil, Venezuela. So there is a march of authoritarian leadership that has been taking over the world leadership position in the past 3-4 years. During the pandemic, this leadership has only become more emboldened. Why? Because the pandemic has consistently and substantially taken away power from the public by creating a great threat of all kind of public activities, public gatherings. So one of the biggest power that the public has against their own government is the power of assembly and the power of peaceful disobedience campaigns or protests and agitation, social agitation. But due to the COVID-19 pandemic, people simply cannot do that. So that has only emboldened already authoritarian and sort of dictatorial leaderships around the world, because the state's power has been increased in times of pandemic because the public is in fear, and they believe, and the state has placed itself in such a way that the public believes that it is only the state which can rescue them and save them from this pandemic. And this increased public confidence, or let's say public reliance upon the government, has been utilized and misused by authoritarian leaders to further concentrate power into their own hands. And we have seen that in Turkey, we have seen that in India, and now we are experiencing that in the United States of America as well. But the United States of America has a much more robust, system of separation of power, a history of republicanism, and the system of checks and balances, which ensures that no branch of the government can overpower the other branches. And due to this constitutional setup, Trump has not been able to prevent the re-election of his own campaign and create enough constitutional crisis in the United States of America that it would bring some kind of dramatic changes. But nevertheless, the fact that his supporters attacked the House of Congress is a direct inclination that the radical right in the United States is willing to damage the democratic ideals of the United States of America in order to support their candidate. Now, how is that relevant in the CSS? So, in the pandemic, if there is a topic in essay that talks about or asks you to talk about the impacts of the pandemic, you can explain how the march of authoritarianism around the world has only increased during the times of pandemic, and that's a very important political impact of the COVID-19 pandemic directly related to the geopolitics of the coronavirus as well. Moreover, in a question in current affairs where they talk about the political impacts of geopolitics of the coronavirus, you can definitely quote this idea there as well, that the COVID-19 has only emboldened already authoritarian leaders around the world, and the public, due to lockdown restrictions and inability to gather and inability to do protests and agitation, has been unable to hold these authoritarian leaders accountable and prevent them from eroding the democratic values of their respective countries and becoming more authoritative and dictatorial in their offices. So this is a very important development. However, in the case of the United States of America, Trump naturally cannot do anything, and that has proved quite true, because Congress actually, Senate especially, impeached President Trump for the second time, and this time there were 8 Republican senators who voted in favor of impeaching Trump for the first time, when initially when Trump was impeached for the first time by the House of Representatives, the Republicans did not vote in favor of impeaching their own president, but this time they did, which clearly points out that the American electoral system and the Congress and the government structure of the United States of America is basically done with Trump. But his legacy will definitely keep on inciting far-right hatred, xenophobia, Islamophobia in the United States of America, and it will take a long time perhaps before the United States of America returns to a more center-right or center-left orientation. But that is yet to see. I mean, the opposite of that could happen as well, and the drift of America towards radicalism could increase. No one can say. So keep updated on these important events. Thank you very much for your patience. Allah Hafiz.